The storm had been building for hours, and by midnight, the northern star was fighting through a wall of black water. Waves crashed over the bow with the weight of falling trees, and every impact sent a shudder through the steel bones of the ship. The crew was asleep, exhausted after a long day. But Ethan Cole was on duty, walking the deck with a flashlight that barely cut through the rain. He had worked night shifts before, but something about this one felt wrong. Not dangerous, wrong. As if the darkness around the ship wasn't just night, but something watching, waiting for the right moment to move. Ethan checked the winches, the nets, the safety lines. Everything was in place. The storm was loud, but the ship was holding steady. He was about to head back inside when a sound rose beneath the wind. A deep metallic scrape coming from the cargo hold. Not a clang, not a rattle. A slow, heavy drag, like steel being bent by something with enormous strength. Ethan stopped. The sound came again, deeper this time, vibrating through the deck under his boots. He knew the noises of this ship. He knew how crates shifted, how chains swung, how the hull groaned in rough seas. This wasn't any of those. This was deliberate, controlled, almost searching. He forced himself toward the hatch, gripping the cold railing as the ship lurched. The moment he opened the door, the storm's roar faded behind him, replaced by the low hum of the engines and the echo of dripping water. The cargo hold was dark, too dark. He descended the metal stairs slowly, each step ringing through the empty space. The smell of fish and diesel grew stronger, mixing with something else, a damp, earthy scent he couldn't place. When he reached the bottom, he swept the flashlight across the rows of crates. At first, everything looked normal. Then the beam caught the far corner. Several heavy wooden boxes were torn open, not cracked, not smashed, but ripped apart as if something had hooked its claws into the wood and pulled with impossible force. Fish lay scattered across the floor, shredded into pieces. The wooden planks were split by long, deep grooves. Claw marks, massive ones. Ethan crouched, running his fingers along the torn edge of a crate. The wood wasn't just broken, it was peeled back. Something had reached out from inside, but that made no sense. He had watched these crates being sealed. He had checked them himself. Nothing could have been inside. He stood up slowly, scanning the shadows between the stacks. The hold was silent, but the silence felt wrong. Thick, heavy, as if the darkness itself was holding its breath. A drop of water fell from the ceiling, then another. Then something shifted in the far corner, too quiet to identify, too heavy to ignore. Ethan stepped back toward the stairs, keeping the flashlight pointed ahead. He didn't run. Running would mean admitting he was afraid, and fear on a ship at night was a dangerous thing. Only when he reached the deck again, with the storm slamming into his face and the wind tearing at his jacket, did he finally breathe. Whatever tore through those crates, whatever made those marks, it wasn't finished. and the night had only begun. The storm raged across the deck, but Ethan barely felt it. The cold wind, the rain, the crashing waves, none of it mattered compared to what he had seen in the hold. He stood for a moment, letting the air steady him, trying to make sense of the torn crates and the claw marks carved deep into the wood. Nothing on the Northern Star could have done that. Nothing he had ever seen at sea. He forced himself back inside. The corridor lights flickered with the rhythm of the storm, casting long shadows across the metal walls. Water dripped from his jacket as he moved toward the radio room, hoping to raise someone, anyone, on the line. The door was half open. He didn't remember leaving it that way. Inside, the radio hissed with static, and an empty, steady hum, as if the world beyond the ship had gone silent. A faint vibration rolled through the floor, not from the engines. Something deeper. A slow, deliberate shift somewhere below the waterline. Ethan stepped back into the corridor, listening. The ship tilted slightly, not with the waves, but with weight. Something moving inside the hull. Whatever tore through those crates wasn't finished. It was awake, and it was no longer staying in the hold. Ethan tightened his grip on the flashlight. The corridor was silent again, but not still. Ethan could feel it, a slow, rhythmic pressure beneath the floor, like the heartbeat of something enormous. The ship tilted slightly, then steadied, as if adjusting to new weight. The beam cut through the mist of condensation, catching the trembling rivets along the wall. Every sound seemed sharper now. The drip of water, the hum of the engines, the faint groan of steel under strain. Then came the vibration, deep, deliberate, not from the storm, not from the sea, from inside. Ethan crouched, pressing his hand to the cold metal. The pulse was steady, moving toward the bow. Something was crawling through the lower decks. He stood, backing toward the stairwell. The air felt heavier, thicker, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. A faint echo rolled through the corridor, a scrape, a drag, then silence. He turned the flashlight down the passage. Nothing, just the wet floor and the flickering lights. He could hear the slow shift of weight below, the sound of metal bending, water sloshing against bulkheads. The ship groaned again, deeper this time, like something pressing against its ribs from the inside. He moved toward the stairwell, one step at a time. The vibration followed, faint but constant. Every few seconds, a dull thud echoed through the hull. Ethan stopped at the junction where the corridor split. To the left, the engine room. To the right, the cargo hold. The sound came from both directions, overlapping, like two heartbeats out of sync. He swallowed hard, the taste of salt and rust thick in his mouth. The flashlight trembled slightly in his hand. He forced himself to breathe, slow and steady. Then, from somewhere deep below, came a hollow clang, metal against metal, followed by a low, dragging scrape. The deck shuddered. Dust fell from the ceiling. And for a moment, Ethan thought he heard something else beneath the noise. A breath, long and wet, echoing through the pipes. Whatever tore through those crates wasn't finished. It was awake, and it was no longer staying in the hold. Ethan turned toward the stairwell, gripping the flashlight tighter. He didn't know what was down there, but he knew it was coming up. Ethan stepped off the last stair and into the lower deck. The air was colder here, thick with moisture and the metallic smell of rust. Water dripped steadily from the pipes overhead, each drop echoing down the narrow corridor. He moved forward, sweeping the flashlight across the wet floor. The beam trembled slightly in his hand, catching the glint of rivets and the thin mist that hovered close to the ground. The ship vibrated beneath him, but not with the steady rhythm of engines. This was slower, heavier, like something shifting its weight somewhere deep inside the hull. A faint scrape rolled through the corridor, then a low groan of metal bending under strain. Ethan lifted the flashlight, forcing his breath to stay quiet. At the far end of the passage, the darkness thickened. Not because the lights dimmed, but because something was standing there, broad, tall, motionless. The beam of the flashlight caught the edge of fur, wet, dark, clumped together in heavy strands. Ethan's breath stalled. The creature shifted slightly, revealing the curve of a massive shoulder and the rise of a head that nearly brushed the pipes above. Two faint reflections blinked back at him, just the light catching on its eyes for a fraction of a second, but enough to make his stomach drop. A bear, but far larger than any he had ever seen, and far too quiet for its size. It inhaled, a long, wet breath that rattled through the pipes overhead and vibrated in Ethan's chest. The sound was slow, deliberate, almost curious. He tightened his grip on the flashlight. The bear tilted its head, studying him. It didn't charge. It didn't roar. It simply watched, as if deciding what he was. Then, with a smoothness that didn't match its bulk, it stepped sideways into the shadows and disappeared behind a wall of pipes. The sound of its movement lingered, a soft drag of claws on steel, the faint splash of disturbed water, then faded completely. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Ethan stood alone in the corridor, but the silence around him had changed. It felt aware, focused. Whatever was on this ship had seen him now, and it wasn't hiding anymore. He forced himself to move, not toward the noise, not toward the darkness where the bear had vanished, but toward the bridge. If there were answers, they'd be there. The door to the wheelhouse resisted at first, swollen with rust and salt, then gave way with a wet metallic crack. The room smelled of old smoke, oil, and something else underneath. Fur, maybe. Wet fur. The consoles were dead, glass cracked. A chart lay pinned under a rusted mug, edges curled and stained. Ethan pulled it free. The route was marked in thick red pencil, a looping line along the Alaskan coast. One point was circled several times, hard enough to tear the paper. Kodiak Island. He swallowed. There were notes in the margin, scrawled in a tired, angry hand.
Fishing's dead here. Bears everywhere on the shore at night. Big bastards. Coming right up to the waterline. Crew's spooked. Captain says we hold position anyway.
Another line, written later, shakier.
Storm hit fast. Cargo hatch jammed open. Heard something fall in the hold. Thought it was a crate.
He found another page, torn from a logbook, taped to the console.
We can't get it out. It's gone mad in the hold. We're down 2 men already. We're abandoning ship at first light. If anyone finds this vessel, don't go below.
Ethan let the paper fall. The bear hadn't come from a lab, or a cage, or some secret program. It had come from the only place it could have, the coast where these ships had always stolen from the sea. The ship had drifted, the crew had gone, but the bear had stayed, months alone in the dark, learning the corridors, following every creak, every drip, every echo, until the ship itself became its territory. A low sound rolled through the hull, not a growl, more like a long, tired exhale, somewhere below. Ethan knew he was here. Ethan stepped back from the console, the flare in his hand burning low, spitting weak sparks. The bridge windows were black, no stars, no shore, no lights. Just the slow, heavy breathing of the sea. He had 2 choices, go back down or leave. He turned away from the stairs that led into the bowels of the ship. On the starboard side, the emergency raft locker hung half open, its metal frame twisted but not completely ruined. The release cable was stiff, but it moved when he put his weight into it. A dull clank echoed through the hull. The flare finally died. Darkness swallowed the corridor behind him. Ethan didn't look back. He wrestled the raft free, dragged it to the rail, and shoved it overboard. The cold wind hit his face like a slap. The sea below was black, but it was honest. It didn't watch him. It didn't breathe with him. He climbed over the rail. For a moment he hesitated, one hand still on the rusted metal of the ship. This vessel had been a trap, for the crew, for the bear, and now for him. But it wasn't his grave unless he chose to stay. He let go. The impact with the raft knocked the air from his lungs. Salt water splashed his face. He fumbled for the line, cut it loose, and the current began to pull him away. The ship loomed above him, a black shape against a darker sky. No lights, no movement, just a dead hulk drifting in the cold. But as the distance grew, Ethan heard it one last time. A deep, distant sound from inside the hull. Not rage, not hunger, just a heavy, exhausted breath. The sound of something that had been left behind a long time ago and had never understood why. The ship turned slowly with the swell, its bow angling back toward the empty horizon, toward the dark line where the sea met the unseen shore, back toward the place where, once on a stormy night, it had drifted too close to land, where the Kodiaks walked the rocks in the dark. Ethan lay back in the raft, chest heaving, eyes on the sky. The silence around him was empty again. For the first time all night, that felt like a mercy